We're going to be checking in with a live feed of Attorney General Merrick Garland as he has a major announcement coming out of the Department of Justice. We're going to check in with that in a moment. Plus, let's talk about Trump. Let's talk about the subpoena and so much more. So stay with us, folks. We got a lot to talk about here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Peace, folks. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning into The Culture here on the Black Star Network. In a moment, we're going to be doing a live feed of Attorney General Merrick Garland, who is going to be taking the podium to talk about some of the latest developments in the Department of Justice. Some people are speculating that it might be surrounding the situation with former President Donald Trump. But in a few moments, we will be going to that live feed. Now, today on the show, we're going to talk about the former president's trials, as he's been dealing with a number of investigations, from everything relating to his business practices to withholding classified documents once he left the White House. Now, joining me today in a few moments will be my brother Michael Imhotep. Brother Michael Imhotep, you see him on Fridays on Roland Martin Unfiltered. He's been working in a lot of different capacities, but the big thing is that he is the host of the African History Show network. He's also been doing some work in teaching, and he is an historian. So he's going to give us some context, some insight about what we're seeing from everything from history to culture today. So let's jump right into that live feed. And then, folks, we will have the conversations. Make sure you join us right now on all of our streaming platforms, blackstarnetwork.com, as well as YouTube and Facebook. And also, you can certainly follow me at The Real Farajii to continue the conversation even offline. All right, let's jump into this live feed.
I have made clear that the Department of Justice will speak through its court filings and its work. Just now, the Justice Department has filed a motion in the Southern District of Florida to unseal a search warrant and property receipt relating to a court-approved search that the FBI conducted earlier this week. That search was of premises located in Florida belonging to the former president. The department did not make any public statements on the day of the search. The former president publicly confirmed the search that evening, as is his right. Copies of both the warrant and the FBI property receipt were provided on the day of the search to the former president's counsel, who was on site during the search. The search warrant was authorized by a federal court upon the required finding of probable cause. The property receipt is a document that federal law requires law enforcement agents to leave with the property owner. The department filed the motion to make public the warrant and receipt in light of the former president's public confirmation of the search, the surrounding circumstances, and the substantial public interest in this matter. Is the bedrock principle of the Justice Department and of our democracy. Upholding the rule of law means applying the law evenly, without fear or favor. Under my watch, that is precisely what the Justice Department is doing. All Americans are entitled to the even-handed application of the law, to due process of the law, and to the presumption of innocence. Much of our work is by necessity conducted out of the public eye. We do that to protect the constitutional rights of all Americans and to protect the integrity of our investigations. Federal law, long-standing department rules, and our ethical obligations prevent me from providing further details as to the basis of the search at this time. There are, however, certain points I want you to know. First, I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter. Second, the department does not take such a decision lightly. Where possible, it is standard practice to seek less intrusive means as an alternative to a search and to narrowly scope any search that is undertaken. Third, let me address recent unfounded attacks on the professionalism of the FBI and Justice Department agents and prosecutors. I will not stand by silently when their integrity is unfairly attacked. The men and women of the FBI and the Justice Department are dedicated, patriotic public servants. Every day, they protect the American people from violent crime, terrorism, and other threats to their safety while safeguarding our civil rights. They do so at great personal sacrifice and risk to themselves. I am honored to work alongside them. This is all I can say right now. More information will be made available in the appropriate way and at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Attorney General, the former president said this is
FBI agents?
Thank you all for your questions, but as I said, this is all I can say at this time.
Folks, that was Attorney General Merrick Garland giving us an update on what has transpired around the situation, a number of concerns and issues with former President Donald Trump relating to the retrieval of classified documents that the president took out of the White House once he was voted out of office. Now, the thing is, we've been talking about this FBI raid. And as you can hear the Attorney General mention, they have filed a motion to unseal the search warrant, right? And the property seized since President Trump has confirmed the search took place. And this was all authorized by the Attorney General Merrick Garland. Now, it also came out in the news earlier today that there was a subpoena that was issued to President Trump months ago from the Department of Justice. In that subpoena, they asked the president to return those classified documents. He returned some. However, he still withheld some other documents that was highly classified and that served as a real threat to the issue of national security. So that's why the Department of Justice has decided to move forward in getting the FBI to retrieve those documents. Here to talk to us about this situation and to give us some context as to what we're looking at, and more importantly, what should we expect as we move this whole situation forward, is my brother Michael Imhotep. Brother Michael has been doing the great work of using his platform as he is the host of the African History Show Network. And it's live on, the African History Network show that can be heard live on Sundays from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 9:10 a.m. WFDF. And he's also an educator as well as a contributor for Roland Martin Unfiltered, and just an all-around good brother. Brother Michael, thank you so much for joining me today here on The Culture, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brother Farajii. How you doing today?
Oh man, I'm doing well considering the situation. So let's kind of break this thing down, man.
Right.
Because there are so many conversations, Brother Michael, about, is this the nail in the coffin of Trump? Is this the beginning of the end for the former president? Now, you and I, we've been on Brother Roland's show. We've talked about Trump many times.
Sure.
But this whole situation feels a lot different. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. It absolutely is a lot different.
It feels a lot different. They used to call him Teflon Don. I remember that name. That stuck with him for years, Brother Michael, calling him
Right.
Teflon Don. That because
Right.
there were so many allegations and accusations, and yet nothing would seem to stick. However, this feels different. Not only with that, like I mentioned, the subpoena that the president was given months ago to
Right.
ask for those documents, he didn't fully adhere to that subpoena. And then he got this investigation happening in New York State with the state's attorney, Letitia James, our sister up there, around the attorney general there, around his business practices for the Trump organization. What is going on?
Well, what's happening is this stuff is really catching up with Trump, and he's getting hit from all different directions at the same time. And this is what I said was going to happen. I said, first of all, I wasn't sure if he was going to run for re-election, say like a year ago. I wasn't really sure if he was going to run for re-election, number one. And one of the reasons why I said that is because he's going to be hit with so many investigations. You have the January 6th committee, and we see what's coming out of there. And then also you have the Department of Justice doing their investigation as well, which goes even beyond the January 6th committee. You have the subpoena and these classified documents. Now, we found out back during earlier this year, back around February or so, about 15 boxes of classified documents that Donald Trump had at Mar-a-Lago. And they were recovered, but we didn't know that there were still documents that were classified that were not recovered. So we found out that, well, number one, there's an article from NBC News, NBCnews.com from August 9th, which would have been Tuesday, August 9th, 2022. Trump's legal team was in talks with DOJ this spring over records stored at Mar-a-Lago, attorney says. And this goes back to talks between Trump's legal team and the Department of Justice as recently as early June 2022 over these documents. And then we see the reporting from the New York Times today: subpoena preceded search warrant and push to retrieve material from Trump. So, and it was suspected by legal analysts and scholars that the search warrant was, number one, the last resort, because they could not get these classified documents through other means, through a subpoena. Okay, number one. Number two, it's suspected that these classified documents must be very, very important, very, very sensitive, because there's never been an FBI serving a search warrant on a former president's house. This is unprecedented. Okay, and also it's important to understand, and a lot of legal analysts have said this, as well as attorney Demario Solomon Simmons on Roland Martin Unfiltered a couple of days ago. He said this was not a raid that was conducted on Mar-a-Lago. This was the FBI serving a search warrant. Okay, a raid is when they come in 6 o'clock in the morning, kick down your door, ransack your house, things like this. Okay, this was not a raid. That's the language Donald Trump used to draw sympathy, because he's fundraising on this. Okay, but right. Yeah, but there's a lot more. There's a lot more that's going to be coming, because this, as far as we know right now, this search warrant is not connected to the January 6, 2021 insurrection. As far as we know right now, there's still going to be coming. There's still going to be more coming from the DOJ dealing with the January 6 investigation as well. So it's a whole lot coming. We're going to have some very busy news cycles coming.
Hey, look, hey, brother Michael, here's the crazy thing about this situation. Like, it's all coming now. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
It's
like,
hitting
it's
at the same time. It's
same time, bro. And when you look at how the former president moves, right? Like, he can handle one at a time. You know, I mean, let me tell you, he must be spending, money over money in lawyers to handle all of the investigation. And these aren't just like petty beefs. This is like
keep
the federal government.
The Republican National Committee is paying his legal fees. He got them to pay his legal fees. So they're paying his legal fees. And, once again, he's strong-arming them. But I think a lot of this is going to implode. So there was a poll taken, I think it was June of this year, where about 50% of Republicans did not want Trump to run for re-election. They're looking at other people like Ron DeSantis, I remember reading Florida, that. Yeah. Yes, sir. Things like this. And then when you have a search warrant like this from the FBI, this is totally unprecedented. Okay, and you're going to have more coming out from the January 6th committee. I don't think it's going to be more Republicans who want Trump to run now.
Right,
I
right,
think
right.
this is I think this is going to be really negative, especially with him railing against the FBI. Okay, this is supposed to be the party of law and order. Okay, they back the blue until the coup. They backed the blue until the coup. So you can't be the party of law and order. Then you're coming out against the FBI. But then this morning on Morning Joe, if you can get this clip, if Roland can get this clip, man, play this on your show. This morning on Morning Joe, they showed a montage of commentary from Fox News from when you had the Hillary Clinton email scandal. And all these people on Fox News, were saying that the FBI needs to investigate, they need to do search warrants, all this stuff. They were calling for the FBI to go after Hillary Clinton. Okay.
Let me add to that.
Yep.
The big piece that was circulating on Twitter was Mike Pence's Twitter tweet where he praised the FBI.
Right.
And he tagged real Donald Trump at that time. He tagged them and said, "We thank the FBI, we commend the FBI for looking into this situation." He praised the institution. Right. Now you're talking about you're deeply concerned. This is crazy.
And the FBI director was nominated by Donald Trump, Christopher Wray. The FBI director was nominated by Donald Trump. Okay, so now you have these commentators on Coup Plotter TV. You have them now railing against the FBI after he did not turn over all the classified documents. And it's important for people to understand the 1978 Presidential Records Act. Okay, all those documents, even if Trump declassified them before he left the office, they don't belong to him. They belong to the public. He cannot keep those documents. He has to turn them over so they can be properly preserved. So even if he declassified all the documents, which would be problematic, because there's supposed to be a process as you go through to determine. You're supposed to get like some advice on whether you should declassify this or not. Okay, but even if he did declassify all the documents, they don't belong to him. He can't keep them, so he's still in violation of the Presidential Records Act of 1978.
Hey, and Brother Michael, what do you make of? And there are a couple of things that you pointed out that that was along the same lines of some things that I pointed out in my show yesterday. But what do you make of Republicans rallying around this president, this man who is such a liability to the party, right? Who is so destructive and really is so antithetical to their interests, in the long term. How they're rallying around this? What do you make of? Because I think I think it's insanity. At this point, there has to be some conversation with the RNC, with some of these leading Republican leadership, and saying, look, this guy is an anchor. He is going to, rather not the anchor. Let me say this: he's the iceberg for this ship. He is going to take us down.
Right. Well, what
do you make of that, bro?
Well, this is how corrupt many of them have become, and how afraid they are of Donald Trump and his thugs, the 3%ers and the Proud Boys and things like this. These domestic terrorists. They're afraid of those people. They're afraid of being attacked on social media. They're afraid. Those who are elected officials are afraid of being primaried. And the other thing is that this is really a pivotal period in history. Now, I was never one of these people who parroted what corporate media said in MSNBC and CNN and said that Democrats were destined to lose the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. I never bought into that. The reason why is, one, I studied the Democrats' record, and it's much better than Republicans. What Democrats have been able to get accomplished these 18 months or 19 months or so is much better than Republicans. Number one. Number two, the way to frame this 2022 midterm election is not to frame it based upon the past 100 years of midterm elections, where except for 2 years, the party that controls the White House lost seats in the House and the Senate. The way that I frame this as a historian is that this is the first midterm election after an insurrection since the 1866 midterm elections, the year after the Civil War ended. That's the way we need to frame this, because this is what's happened. This is the first time in history that you've ever had a midterm election after a sitting president incited an insurrection to overthrow the government and stay in power. That's never happened before. So the way we need to frame this is not your grandfather's midterm election. This is the first midterm election after an insurrection since the 1866 midterm election after the Civil War. Okay, that's how we need to frame this. And at the top of the ticket is saving the democracy, because when you study, there was an article from Axios.com, but from by Jonathan Swan, and it deals with a radical change, and it deals with Schedule F, and the Schedule F classification, and it deals with the plot of Trump and his cronies, if he takes back control of the White House, is to change the classification of a lot of civil servants so that it makes it easy for him to fire them and replace them with Trump loyalists. You're talking about a rolling coup of the federal government. We haven't seen something like this before. So at the top of the ticket is saving the democracy and making sure that our votes count, our votes are enforced, things like this. Then you have women's reproductive rights, you have voting rights, you have criminal justice reform, you have economic issues, climate change, all things like this. But inflation is not at the top of the ticket. Inflation is cyclical, one. Two, inflation is taking place globally. Okay?
Right.
Saving the
and Brother Michael,
yeah, go ahead.
And you know what? I'm so happy, brother, that first you're joining me for this big announcement and for this moment to give us some of this context, because I feel like you and I are on the same page in this regard, that there is something intrinsically and fundamentally disturbing.
Yes.
This and look, I've been trying to wrap my mind around it. I've been reading all these different op-eds and really, and I'm just saying, folks, and I said this before, over these past couple of days, the way that the GOP is moving, it is so against the very nature of the government that is often touted as the system that we all are a part of. It's antithetical to this form of government.
Exactly.
Antithetical.
You can't read the U.S. Constitution, understand the Constitution, and then be a Trump supporter. Not like this. No, you may have voted for Trump in 2016, but you realize, oh no, because there's some Republicans that said, oh no, we can't have them again. But you can't be a diehard Trump supporter and embrace the U.S. Constitution. That means you don't understand what you read. Yeah, that means you don't understand what you read. Absolutely not. You got a guy who incited insurrection to hang the vice president because the vice president would not go along with not certifying electoral college votes, and the vice president does not have the authority based upon the Constitution to do this, and Trump is just making stuff up in the Constitution. I don't think he knows the difference between the Constitution and constipation, to be honest with you. I don't think he's ever read the Constitution.
I don't think so either. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick pause. When we come back, we're going to continue the conversation. Folks, post your thoughts on our streaming platforms, YouTube, on Facebook. I want to play that. I want to play for you that montage that Brother Michael talked about from Morning Joe. We got it. We're going to play it, and we're going to get to your reactions. Folks, we've been talking about this very, very unprecedented moment of a former president under so much scrutiny, and with the latest announcement coming from Attorney General Merrick Garland. What does that mean to unseal the documents, the search warrant, to have this whole situation go down? We got to talk about it. It's bigger. It's so much bigger than what you, as Brother Michael said, you're talking about democracy is at stake here, folks. And at this moment, we have to figure out how we're going to navigate through this very, very uncertain space. Stay with us. More conversation, more of your thoughts, and a whole lot more as we come forward right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. We have been having a conversation based on the announcement coming from the Attorney General Merrick Garland to give us some more details about that search of classified documents from former President's home, former President Donald Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago, Florida. We've been talking about the implications of this, and moreover, what do we expect moving forward as the former president is embroiled in a number of major investigations from the state government to the federal government, and what this all means for democracy. Now, we've been having this great conversation with my brother Michael Imhotep, who is the host of the African History Show, network show, and that you can definitely download and listen to that show, as well as he is an educator and historian, and he's providing his insight and analysis on this whole situation. But we want to hear from you. I love having my thoughts, your thoughts coming in. So no conversation is complete without you. Make sure you post your comments in the streaming platforms of YouTube, Facebook, and a whole lot more. And of course, make sure you continue to download blackstarnetwork.com, because we want to continue to move this conversation forward as we're having big discussions like this right on Black-owned media. So make sure you check us out at blackstarnetwork.com. Brother Michael, I want to bring you back into this fold because I'm looking. And before we took the break, I'm here's what I'm seeing. The same thing that you're seeing. Mm-hmm. Brother, I'm seeing the same thing that you're seeing. I'm seeing that this is bigger. Like you just said, look, inflation is not even at the top of the ticket. We are literally looking at a situation now. Given it, let me tell you, they got that act, the Inflation Act that had just passed.
Inflation Reduction Act 2022. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And that's going to tackle inflation long term. Even though in recent polls, inflation is number one, women's reproductive rights, abortion is number two. By the time you get to November, in midterm elections, I think women's reproductive rights will be number one. Charlie, right. I'm not sure what saving the democracy was, but that's at the top. Saving the democracy is at the top of the ticket, whether it's one of the choices or not in the poll. Okay, this is what we have to understand. That's huge. Okay, because everything else flows from that. You destroy the Constitution. Okay, everything else is gone from there.
Let's keep it real. You can't have a conversation if the document, the Constitution, and again, folks, I wanted to frame this in the best way, because as much as we're talking about this, because I know some of us, Brother Michael, we might be in a space where and you ain't got to answer this right now, but I know some of
Right.
us are going to be in this space where they're like, well, man, I'm happy to see that the government is falling and doing boom, boom, boom. But we don't have an alternative at this moment.
Not only that, it's going to fall right on us.
It's going to fall on us.
No, no, we need to transform what it is. It's going to fall right on us. See, people say that until the ceiling collapses on their head. Okay, no.
You feel that one brick. You feel that brick. You feel that.
Domestic terrorists
you look it up.
here?
You like, wait a minute, hold up. This falling on me too. Look, man, look, let me tell y'all something. Let me tell you something. When the government is falling and as many people, and we got to keep this real, folks, so many Black people has put their hopes and aspirations into this system of things, this democratic system of things, right? And if we look at it, as much as there's only a small number of folks that is like, no, we need to change it. But a lot of Black folks, a lot of Latinos, a lot of poor whites, a lot of people have put their hopes into the system of things. And as a result of that.
Right. So it's important to understand that it's important to understand that one, the federal government came to the aid of African Americans when we were being attacked by domestic terrorists during Reconstruction. Okay, see, it's important to understand that history. So you have the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1870. Well, actually go back to 1870. The U.S. Department of Justice was created in 1870 largely to protect and enforce the rights of African Americans and go after the domestic terrorists, go after the Klan and things like that in the South. This is why the U.S. Department of Justice was created. Now, the Office of Attorney General was created about 1789, but the U.S. Department of Justice, and there's an article I just talked about this. I did a broadcast on my show Sunday. I just talked about this on my show Sunday. There's an article from SmithsonianMag.com, the Smithsonian Institute, and it deals with the first Attorney General, the first Attorney General under the Department of Justice, Amos T. Ackerman, 1870. And then how he was going after the domestic terrorists. And then 1871, the U.S. Congress passes the third of what's known as the Enforcement Acts. This was known as the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. And it gave the president the authority to impose martial law in counties and things like this, where African Americans and elected officials, white Republicans who were allies of African American Republicans, were being attacked. So in 1871, President Ulysses S. Grant imposes martial law in 9 counties in South Carolina to crack down on the Ku Klux Klan. Okay, you look at intervention when you have different massacres take place in this country during Reconstruction. But then 1875, when you have the Clinton, Mississippi riot of 1875, Ulysses S. Grant employs his non-intervention policy, because Republicans in the federal government got tired of intervening and helping African Americans in the South when it came to these domestic terrorists attacking us. Okay. And so you had a declining, one of the reasons why Reconstruction ends, yes, there was political violence that took place, Clinton, Mississippi massacre, Colfax massacre, things like this. But also there was a declining commitment from Republicans to keep intervening in disputes in the South on our behalf, okay, towards the end of Reconstruction. This is something else that takes place. But you look at Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, U.S. Supreme Court case, which overturns Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896. You look at the Montgomery bus boycott, which lasts 381 days. What ended segregation on the bus in Montgomery, Alabama was not the Montgomery bus boycott, even though it was needed. It was the lawsuit of Browder versus Gale, filed February 1st, 1956 by attorney Fred Gray, which goes all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And the U.S. Supreme Court rules that segregation on the buses in Montgomery, Alabama is unconstitutional. This is what ends the Montgomery bus boycott. So what Brown versus Board of Education showed us is that we could go to the federal government to try to get some type of justice, because we couldn't get it at the local level. We couldn't get it at the state level. Okay, so even if you go back and look at the U.S. Bureau of Freedmen, Refugees, and Abandoned Lands, was known as the Freedmen's Bureau, right? They weren't just helping former slaves, they were helping poor, destitute white people after the Civil War ends as well. Because there was a lot of poor, destitute white people because the Civil War largely destroyed the South. Okay, so there's a history of us having to go to the federal government for some type of help. Okay, there's a history of that. So what we have to, yes, we have to deal with self-defense, and that's important. And that was a part of the civil rights movement that does not get talked about. Roland Martin interviewed Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. when he had his show News One Now with Roland Martin, and Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. was a field secretary for SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, for 5 years in rural Mississippi. And he wrote a book called This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed, How Guns Made the Civil Rights Movement Possible. And it's all about the history of how it was African Americans who were in the South, who were armed, who owned guns, who were protecting the civil rights workers from the domestic terrorists and the Klan and things like this, because we couldn't rely on the sheriffs and the police to protect us when we are engaged in nonviolent direct action. Okay, so we have to understand both of those. We have to understand exercising our Second Amendment rights, because the Second Amendment does apply to us as well, and protecting ourselves, but also understand we have to transform the federal government. And I encourage African Americans need to be applied to the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice was created to help protect our rights. We have to understand that history.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I'm glad that you brought that historical context, because it goes in line with, I think, with where we are right now. Until we get something of our own, a separate government established, we are going to have to confront the truth, whether we're going to radically reform, radically change this situation, right? Whether it's from the inside out, outside in, or if we say we're going to move on from this whole thing, then we're going to have to start building. Like at this point, folks, and let me just say this, and then we're going to get to some of your thoughts. At this point, the writing is on the wall. This country is going through a major transformational change.
Right. Yeah,
the writing is on the wall. Democracy is changing, and it speaks volumes about where we are. All right, let me just do this. Let's post. I want to show people that montage you talked about, Brother Michael, from Morning Joe. Take a look at this as the now again, folks, keep this in mind. The Republicans that have talked bad about the Department of Justice, talk bad about the FBI, talk bad about these institutions, but they were just praising them like yesterday. Check this out.
Taking the fifth. I think it's disgraceful. What happened? He pleaded the fifth, right? He pleaded the fifth. Fifth Amendment. Bomb. Fifth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Fifth Amendment. Horrible. Horrible. The mob takes the fifth. If you're innocent, why are you taking the Fifth Amendment?
You sit there, Meek, and you listen to him, and he goes, Fifth Amendment.
If you're innocent, why are you taking the Fifth Amendment?
Right. Well, he's not innocent. That's the thing. He knows it because he knows that what he says in a civil trial can also be used in a criminal trial. Right. Okay. So he took the fifth about 440 times. He took the Fifth Amendment about 440 times.
And that's been this investigation with New York, just to give people some context.
Yeah,
that's been a separate investigation, folks.
Right.
The president's Trump organization is now being investigated for illegal business practices and financial misconduct.
Right. Exactly. And inflating the value.
He took the fifth. And the crazy part about this, Brother Michael, he's sitting across the table from Letitia James, the Attorney General.
Right.
He says same answer. Literally, he uses the term same answer 440 times.
And he calls her a racist. This is how you know Trump is scared. Trump is scared.
Wait, hold up. But you're running for the office of the highest office in the land, where you would have to represent.
Mhm.
And you would have to be the ambassador and the advocate of the institution that you hate.
Well, and also he hasn't announced formally that he's going to run again also. But if he does, but here's the other thing. You're going to have a lot of Republicans who, if he does announce he's going to run again, you have a lot of Republicans that say, okay, show us your taxes. And he's going to say, I'm under audit. They're going to say, wait a second, you said you were under audit in 2015. They say, you've been under audit 7-8 years? They said, what type of criminal enterprise are you running? You still under audit? Okay. So, and even if you're under audit, there's nothing saying, the IRS has already said, if you're under audit, you can still release your taxes. Okay. So he tries that again. You're going to have a lot of Republicans who are going to come out and say, wait, hold on. You said that in 2015. And you didn't release it, and you didn't release your taxes. So you've been under audit 7-8 years. Okay, yeah. That's going to be another problem for him as well.
That's a great point. And yep, and he's going to say that.
Oh, he's going to say that. I already know what Trump is going to say before he says it. But this time around, somebody's going to leak his taxes. Somebody.
Let me tell you something. And look, let me tell you something. The one person that I haven't heard from yet that I was expecting to hear from is the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. And here's my theory. Here's my theory.
Mm-hmm.
Ron DeSantis is being primed in position to be the golden boy of the GOP conservative movement of the GOP. He's being seen as, hey, you're the viable candidate.
Right.
He don't want to get his hands involved in this situation, especially the way he moves with no limits and boundaries down in Florida. He don't want the federal government looking at him for any of the stuff he's doing in Florida. So he's being very quiet.
Well, not only that, he doesn't want I think if Trump is severely harmed by these investigations, that helps Ron DeSantis. Because here's the thing. If Trump is severely harmed by these investigations, he may still run for president, but it's possible he doesn't get the nomination because he's so crippled by these investigations.
And guess what's going to happen, brother Michael? Here's what I think is going to happen, brother.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to slam the party that he represents.
Right. Well, he'll slam the party. You got people like Mitch McConnell that want him to go away. Mitch McConnell is not a Trump fan. You have people like Liz Cheney, things like this. You still have Republicans. You got people like Mitt Romney. You still have Republicans who are not Trump acolytes who don't want Trump to run again. Okay, so all that is going to come together at one time, I think. But what's important for African Americans to do, and you talked about having our own nation. Okay, if we can control a city of 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 and run the school system, control city hall, own the grocery stores and gas stations, if we can't run a city, then we're going to have a problem running the nation. See, Dr. John Henry Clark used to say, don't come to me talking that nationhood stuff until you have acquired the skills that it takes to run and manage and maintain a nation. You have to understand how economies work. You have to understand infrastructure, manufacturing, oceanography, things like that. You have to acquire the skills that are needed to run and maintain a nation. Okay.
Exactly.
So I always hear, people saying we need to separate and things like that. Most of them are still here, haven't gone anywhere. So I'm still trying to figure that one out. But we have to acquire the skills needed to run a nation.
That's it.
If we can't control the school system, you're not going to be able to control a nation.
No, sir.
So we have to prime. So we need to focus on controlling the cities and the city governments where we live.
Hey, that's one of my top. That is one of my top sentiments for the conversation about nationhood. I'm all for nationhood. I'm all for changing the government, but you got to put qualified people in there. You got to put people. You do have to study political science. I'm literally just saying that, bro. Thinking of that. Absolutely, you really do have to have political science, like these young brilliant minds that are coming out from HBCUs and PWIs who want to serve our people, who want to see a better form of governance, right, in America, who want to do the right thing, start to cultivate them. And this is years in the making. And you know this history, Brother Michael, 50 years, and I've been talking about this. But when we had that great political convention in 1972 in Gary, Indiana, that is the beginning. That was the beginning of a situation where, you know, we've produced some of the great political leaders like a Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton or Miri Baraka. But when we're talking about, there is no formidable pipeline of political leadership, Black political leadership, that when you come out of college, we're going to bring you through this pipeline. We bring you through maybe a nonprofit, or we bring you through a civil rights organization, and then you bring your skills and you understand. We'll put you in in an economic space, or we'll put you in the school system, learn how to run these systems, right? And then prime you, as you said, prime you to run cities, to run states, prime getting you ready to understand that there's no pipeline for that. And look, leadership is not developed in a vacuum.
Right.
It has to go through a pipeline. It has to be cultivated. And I think that is one of the key things that we have been missing from this whole process. I want to make sure we get to our watchers. And folks, thank y'all for checking in. So many of new watchers, and I am very, very happy and welcome you to the culture here and to the culture, our online culture crew. Let's go to Me First. Me First, you posted this. People don't realize these records were actually stolen and not legally taken.
Right. Exactly. The president can't take those with him. The Presidential Records Act of 1978 was instituted after Richard Nixon resigned from office, and the feds executed the search warrant on Mar-a-Lago on the anniversary of Richard Nixon announcing he was leaving the White House as well. Okay, so that's a coincidence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But those records do not belong to the president. Even if he declassified them, they belong to the American people. And if they're not declassified, they're sensitive records. So he does not own them at all. So he can't take them with him. Absolutely.
Not at all. Not at all. Janae, you said, Michael, can he really run? Why are we floating this rumor? We should be saying he's going to jail. Let that be the slogan.
Well, we hope he goes to jail, but it's not going to be in the next year or so. So that's going to take some time. Even if he was indicted today, the trial probably wouldn't be for another year. So and then you have to get a conviction. You have to have a jury of 12 that conviction. So hopefully he goes to prison, but we have to make sure that we vote. Okay, and vote all these coup plotters out of office and make sure Donald Trump does not get elected as president ever again.
Absolutely,
or any elected
absolutely.
office as far as that goes.
Absolutely. Me First, Janae, thank y'all so much for your comments. Mingley, Natasha Surge, always good to hear from you. You said these Trump supporters about to go nuts. They already going nuts. Going nuts. And he's trying to frame the conversation. They are already going nuts. Let me just share with you what the former president had to say. Because, you know, of course, they're trying to frame the conversation, Brother Michael, where he's trying to frame it where it looks like it's an attack on him versus the fact. And I want to make sure, okay, let me just share this with you. This is what President Trump, he just put this out a few moments ago to the Merrick Garland Attorney General's news conference. He said, quote, "I continue to ask, what happened to the 33 million pages of documents taken to Chicago by President Obama? The fake news media refuses to talk about that. They want it canceled." What the hell are you talking about, sir?
33 million documents. Where would you put 33
million pages of documents taken to Chicago by President Obama? Come on, what the hell are you talking about, man?
I don't know.
What? Hey, Brother Michael, this thing getting to him so bad, he disconnected from reality. I mean, real talk.
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about, where he got that information from, but I do know that he increased the penalty to, I think, 5 years in prison for mishandling classified documents and things like this when he was in office after, after the Hillary Clinton email scandal. So he could get caught up by, a policy he put in place. He increased the penalty for mishandling classified documents, things like that. So, but what I really want people to understand, getting back to your point about a political infrastructure, this is something that I've been talking about, and I teach a concept called political self-defense as well. We have to have an internal infrastructure that educates African Americans politically, economically, historically, and on law that's independent of a Republican or Democratic party. Okay, I'm neither Democrat nor Republican, but I sure as hell ain't stupid. I do study policy in at least at the federal level. Democrats' policies are much better than Republicans, but we have to have an internal infrastructure that educates us on these topics. We cannot wait on a political party to come educate us on why the midterm elections are important or the issues in the midterm elections. We cannot wait on that. Okay, we have to understand what's at stake and take the fight to them as well, and educate our people, mobilize our people. And I'm all for it. We should have the Democratic Party should put money in the community and outreach and all that stuff. Too much is at stake to wait on them to do the right thing. Okay, no doubt. We have to educate our people. And one of the things I encourage people to do, and I talk about this on Roland's show, go to whitehouse.gov. Whitehouse.gov is a really, really good resource. It's the official website of the White House, number one. All the press releases, fact sheets, all that stuff is at whitehouse.gov. And they have a 19-page document there that shows how the policies of the Biden-Harris administration are benefiting the African-American community. And I'll find it here in just a second. So you can go ahead.
Sure. Let's take some more comments really quickly. Let's go back to the comments very quickly. Brother O. Sampson. You say, can we just take this Trump down already? Jeez. Yeah. Well,
that's going to take time.
Why. Hey, look. I don't know about y'all. I want to see. In the name of my man, in the words of my man, Franklin Saint. Brick by brick. I want to see it fall brick by brick.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Brick by brick. Well, it's happening.
I want to see orange toupee hair by orange toupee hair.
Right. Well,
look, man, I want to see. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. As much as we can, and I'm not trying to make light of the situation because there's still so much at stake, and this is why it's not just about one man, folks.
Exactly.
Please, let's not get into a space and say if Trump is out, because this is the narrative that I think the Democrats are going to take on to, that if we get Trump out, we can go back to business as usual. The system needed to be uprooted and disturbed and shaken. The system needed to do this, to go through this process, right? We need to have we use the term reckoning right now to talk about the race issues in this country. But if you define the term reckoning, it talks about a universal change, the reckoning, the system, the way that the government is structured in this country. It needs to go through a purification process.
We need a thorough reconstruction.
It needs to go through a reckoning where we can see the loopholes, the fallacies, the cracks in the foundation, because there are so many different people in this country. There's so many interests in this country. So for me, I want us to go through this, right? We got to go through this in the best way that we can. That's going to protect our interests and our rights. But I'm not mad that we're going through this, because enough is enough.
Yeah,
we can't keep going through. We can't keep the poor, the middle class. We can't keep holding up the weight of the corrupt decisions made by the rich. Not all, but most. I mean, by the rich. Right. We can't keep carrying corporations on our backs.
Right.
We just can't keep doing this.
And then
Go ahead, brother.
Sorry. Yeah, holding Trump accountable, number one, and not just Trump, but also his cronies, holding them accountable is one of the reasons why it's so important for Democrats to maintain control of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Number one. Number two, the transformational policies. You look at the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that provided funding for schools to open back up and paid for hiring more teachers and having smaller classrooms. There was $46.5 billion for rental assistance for renters as well as landlords. There was stimulus money. There was the $4 billion in debt forgiveness for African-American farmers, Latino farmers, and Asian American farmers, Native American farmers. Now, even though you had lawsuits from white farmers who were jealous, and that's being blocked and tied up in court, no Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for the American Rescue Plan. It's important for people to understand this. When it came time to rescue America from COVID-19, rescue the economy, open schools back up, no Republicans voted for that bill. Okay. Also, no Republicans in the House voted for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which passed the House of Representatives in August. It passed the House of Representatives, I think it was March of 2021 by a vote of 220 to 212. And it was blocked in the Senate by a Black Republican, Senator Tim Scott, who lied about what the sticking point was. Okay. So if you read the document at whitehouse.gov, the Biden-Harris administration advances equity and opportunity for Black people and communities across the country. And I posted the link here. Maybe when we come back from the break, they can pull it up so people can see that. There's a 19-page document. If you read this, this shows you directly how these policies are helping African Americans. Most of the stuff you won't see on MSNBC or CNN.
Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we move forward, folks, let's continue this conversation. There's so many people and so many dynamics to this thing. Even though we've been talking about President Trump and his issues and the many investigations around him, this just shines a spotlight on where we are in this country. It shines a spotlight on leadership. It shines a spotlight on systemic inequities and inequalities. It shines a spotlight on this idea of what it means to have a true democracy and so much more. Keep your comments coming. We're going to get back to that. And we're going to certainly get back to the brilliance and scholarship of our brother Michael Imhotep. Stay with us. This all happening on The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
All right, folks, welcome to the second hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Thank you so much for checking us out and tuning in to the very, very lively and I would say historically rooted conversation that we're having right now to talk about some of the big developments in the investigation of former President Donald Trump and his taking of classified documents and the retrieval of those documents coming from the Department of Justice and the FBI. Now, earlier today, Attorney General Merrick Garland had made the announcement saying that he authorized for the search warrants to be unsealed to let us know what was to let us know what was being retrieved. And most importantly, it also came out that the New York Times reported earlier today that there was a subpoena sent to President Trump and his lawyers about these documents, and that the president only gave a few of the documents back, but there were still some more highly classified documents that were missing from the boxes that the president took from the White House. And so as a result of that, those documents being high in nature, highly classified, very sensitive, and as the Department of Justice has put it, served as a threat to national security, the decision was made for the FBI to search and seize those documents. So this wasn't a raid, folks. This was not a raid. President Trump knew that because of him not following orders, because of him not following the law, that this was going to happen. This was not a raid, folks. This wasn't like, you took documents that should have stayed in the possession of the National Archives. These documents should have been returned. So I don't want us to get into a space of calling this a raid when the president and all the other interested parties knew that a day would come when the FBI and the Department of Justice would move forward. And why wouldn't it?
Right, exactly.
Why wouldn't it? Considering this is the protocol for any president. Every single president that has sat in the White House understood that that the documents that were used in handling White House business and White House affairs and national security affairs stay within the White House, stay within the National Archives. Every president except this one, unless you're trying to cover up something, unless you're trying to hide something, unless you're trying to constantly invoke the Fifth Amendment to show that you're not complicit in some type of foolishness. Oh, you did invoke the Fifth Amendment quite a number of times. That's another investigation. We've been having this conversation with Brother Michael Imhotep. Brother Michael, who is a scholar, an educator, a historian, and he's doing a dynamic job on making sure that we stay up to date on everything what's happening in this moment as we look at history on the African History Network. You can check him out on his website at africanhistorynetwork.com. Brother Michael, again, we thank you so much, dear brother, for taking time out for being on this. There's so many different elements of this conversation. Yes. That I think that as you are like unfolding and I'm listening and I'm learning, because there's certain things that I didn't know. So I'm so happy that you're helping us to give us some historical context, brother. Real talk. You know what I mean? I tell people, I'm host of the show, but I don't know everything. So because I don't know, I'm bringing people who do know some stuff onto the show for the benefit of us all. But I want to get back to some of the comments because people, Brother Michael, are really starting to see and we're really having some very, very more important conversations in our community about the state of our government. And I think that this is healthy. Right. And like you said, we should, brother. We really, really should. Nisa, always good to hear from you. Nisa, 1971, you say, this is the republic designed by rich white men for rich white men. The democracy we all imagine we live in does not exist per se. We can create one, but let's not be disillusioned about today's issues. Yeah, I think that's the point I think that's what you and I are working on trying to do, to trying to break us out of this illusion that this system, as we speak of it right now, is a system that we can continue to put our hopes and aspirations in. That
Well, we
this
have to
system,
transform
we
it.
got to
Yeah.
recognize that this system is falling.
Yeah, it has to be transformed. First thing we should do is read the U.S. Constitution, because that's the foundation. Because a lot of us don't understand the Constitution, haven't read it. There was a article from CBS News.com from January 19th, 2021, which was the day before Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were sworn into office, and it deals with how most Americans don't know what's in the U.S. Constitution, don't understand the U.S. Constitution, don't know simple things like how many seats are in the U.S. House of Representatives, different things like this. Okay, 435 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives, and that's based upon the last census, which determines how many seats in the House of Representatives each state has. That comes from the census. First census taken in 1790. It was the U.S. Constitution that created the U.S. Census. Okay, so. And it talked about how this could be catastrophic for society, because you have a lack of understanding of civics, and what happens is the elite always manipulate the poor, ignorant masses. The elite always manipulates the poor, ignorant masses, and this is what we saw January 6, 2021. We saw domestic terrorists incited by the traitor-in-chief Benedict Donald sent to the U.S. Capitol building, and they said we were invited by the president of the United States. First of all, the U.S. Capitol building is not the president's building. The White House is the president's building. He can't invite you to the U.S. Capitol building. That's a separate branch of the federal government. That's the legislative branch. That's Schoolhouse Rock. I'm gonna build on Capitol Hill. That's just basic misunderstanding of the U.S. Constitution and the powers of the executive branch of government and the legislative branch of government. And now a lot of these dumbasses are catching cases. There have been about 850 of those domestic terrorists who've been arrested and charged, and they're being prosecuted now. If they understood the U.S. Constitution, they would understand the vice president does not have the authority to throw out electoral college votes that have been certified by the electoral college. If so, Vice President Joe Biden would have done so when he presided over the certifying of the electoral college votes, the 306 electoral college votes that Donald Trump won. He would have thrown those out.
Right.
Okay. So
Great point.
This is just basic misunderstanding of civics.
Right.
So this is why African Americans, why we have to understand what I call political self-defense. And politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. And politics impacts economics, okay, as well. Politics shapes the economy and the laws that your Black-owned business operates within and has to navigate through. Okay, so all this comes together, but the foundation is African history and culture. And this gives us our VIPs, our values, our interests, and our principles, our self-esteem, self-development, self-worth. And this teaches us how to engage in economics, how to engage in politics. So we have to have a synthesis of all three of these, as two of my teachers, Professor James Small and Dr. Leonard Jeffries, correctly teaches us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's go back to the comments. Jawan Yvette. Jawan, you said, I keep saying this midterm is all hands on deck. We have to come out in 2020 numbers or more. Yeah, I think so. But here's the thing about the whole voting thing for the midterm. The thing is, we have to come out on all hands on deck. But I think we need to be really intentional, folks. We're seeing what's at stake here, right? And if you are in your respective districts, states, and all of those places, and you haven't, like, for example, you haven't had your primary just yet, and your primary is coming up. Like, be intentional. Like, it can't just be the vote thing. Like, oh, we just need to vote. I mean, come on, folks. It just can't be. It's got to be. Okay, how are we going to put some money into these into behind our vote? It's got to be. What are the policies that we're going to be pushing? We're not. No. We're setting the agenda. Don't let somebody come in front of you and just be like, we want better schools, better roads, and we're going to lower crime. And it's like, okay, who doesn't want those things, right? So,
Right.
I mean, be very intentional about what is it that you want your representative, your elected official to do. You come to them with your ideas, your issues. Don't
Yeah,
just
your agenda.
don't. Yeah, I mean, it becomes sad because we're going to keep going down this vicious circle of like, all right, so let's vote somebody else in, and then if they mess up, they screw up, and we're like, okay, we just vote somebody. Like, come on, man. Like, the system is going through, as you mentioned, Brother Michael, has to be transformed. This system is going through a transformational change, and we're still using antiquated, outdated tools to bring
Right.
about that change.
Right.
Now, the system is already changing.
Yeah,
But
this
you
is
know,
why.
it's like you go ahead, brother.
Yeah, this is why it's important to understand local politics, because Republicans are better at messaging and teaching about local politics, city, county, and state government. And this is why when you look at, for instance, how they've manipulated critical race theory, and they've refashioned what critical race theory is, and they have created this umbrella that they mislabel critical race theory, and it deals with all the things, conversations that they don't like about race, racism, white supremacy, the history of slavery, things like this. So they put it all underneath this umbrella of critical race theory, and then they have their various nonprofit organizations and things like this to educate white parents on how to organize and run for school board offices, run for school board positions, show up to school board meetings, start promoting banning books, things like this, create these culture wars. And that it evolved partly out of the fight dealing with COVID-19 requirements and restrictions in the schools. And then it evolved to banning books. It evolved to attacking critical race theory, fueled by Fox News. Okay, there was a 16. Everybody should read this. There was a 16-page. I got to pull up my critical race theory file folder. Actually, there's a 16-page.
Pull up the file,
expose. There's a 16-page expose from NBCnews.com that deals with the whole history of how critical race theory became an issue in schools and with school boards. Okay. And it's funded by dark money groups. It's fueled by Fox News. And this is going to be we see this being a big issue in the midterm elections, but they're focused on all these culture wars, transgender bathrooms, transgender athletes, banning books, critical race theory, things like this. Now, when it comes to fighting inflation, Republicans have nothing for you. When it comes to protecting women's reproductive rights, Republicans have nothing for you. When it comes to police reform, criminal justice reform, basically they have nothing for you. Okay, but they want to fight these culture wars. All right, we got to be smarter than that and really understand how these policies impact us. So that's why that fact sheet, I think Keenan said they have the fact sheet. I could just show that to you quickly. That's from White House.
Yeah, hey, Keenan, let's pull up the fact sheet so we can take a look at this very quickly. Here it is, folks.
Yeah, okay. So fact sheet, the Biden-Harris administration advances equity and opportunity for Black people and communities across the country. Now, this one was last updated February 28th, 2022. It doesn't include the Imhotep anti-lynching bill, which took 122 years to get a federal anti-lynching bill passed. It doesn't include that. It doesn't include the Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. It doesn't include the plan for the 300 strategies they released to deal with 90 federal agencies to deal with racial inequity across federal governments. It doesn't include that, but it's 19 pages. It breaks down the American Rescue Plan. It deals with the $5.8 billion that HBCUs got in funding in 2021, which is a record amount of funding. It deals with the infrastructure bill, the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. That's on page 2. How it says reversing decades of disinvestment through the bipartisan infrastructure law. It'll replace lead pipes, like in places like Flint, Michigan. when you had the Flint water crisis, there was a study that came out that showed how there were 3,000 communities across the country that had higher lead levels in their water than Flint, Michigan. Okay, this right here will replace those lead pipes. Something else, in addition to increasing access to good paying jobs, because the infrastructure bill is going to create a lot of jobs. Something that doesn't get talked about a lot is starting to repair the damage that the interstate highways did when they ran through African-American communities. This is part of this infrastructure bill, reconnect Black neighborhoods divided by legacy highway infrastructure and other resources to finally give Black communities a fair shot at the American dream. When you look at Buffalo, New York, and the top supermarket in that shooting that took place a few months ago,
yes, sir.
That is in an area, an African-American area that was devastated, that the expressways ran through and separated the community. Okay, so there was because of the U.S. Interstate Highway Acts in 1952 and 1956, it drove 41,000 miles of interstate highways across the country. They ran through about 1,600 African-American communities, wiped out a lot of our businesses, wiped out homes that we own, things like this. And we're still feeling the effect of that. The infrastructure bill helps to start that repairing and that process. So read this here. It goes through category by category. It talks about helping African-American farmers. It talks about saving African-American owned land, things like this. And this is just basically the first year, because they came into office January 20th, 2022. So this basically just deals with the first year. There's still a lot of other things they've accomplished that's not in this document.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And see, this is why it's important for us to even, like back to your point, Brother Michael, you mentioned looking at the Constitution, being more informed about how government works, right? And getting connected with resources. I know we still have some people in our watch, in our audience, whether it's for the culture, whether it's for Roland Martin Unfiltered, just in terms of Black Star Network. We try to say, oh, no, y'all talking all this the white man system type stuff. And why should I stay connected to the white man system? Because it's in the system that we live in.
Don't use the white man's money then. don't use
the white man's money then. And this is no shade on those that are fighting to establish other systems and other ways on how to deal with things. But we got to look at the reality for what it currently is, not what we hope for it to be. The fact is, we are a part of this system. We are part of a democratic system, a capitalist system. We are part of a meritocracy. We are part of all of these different systems. So why not be more informed and more educated about how to navigate through this system, and so that what we can find this is the great conundrum facing Black people in this country. You can still operate in an established system while starting a new system. There have been tons of history shows that while one system is going under great trial, like the American political system is currently, this is the opportunity. It's like in business. I'll never forget reading stories of businesses. Whenever there's a major calamity in business or in the country, corporations look at that calamity and not see it as a setback, but they see it as an opportunity. I've read stories, Brother Michael, just for using this as an example. When Hurricane Katrina hit our people down in New Orleans, you know what they did? They say, okay, the water is going to recede. But once that water dries up in that land and people are moved out, we're going to start to invest in that area because that area is going to be ours. They see opportunity in the midst of tragedy. I know it's not, and that's part of being a capitalist, right? You see dollars in the midst of people's pain. But my point is that we have to look at this tragedy, look at all of that is happening in this country, and say, okay, where's the opportunity for the marginalized, for Black and brown? Where's the opportunity for poor people? Where's the opportunity for us to get to be seen and heard? Where's the opportunity? There are big opportunities right in front of us, folks.
Well, yeah, this is understanding the factors in the environment that impact your economics, impact your business, things like this. These environmental factors are always changing, and you have threats and you have opportunities, things of this nature. So we have to take advantage of that. When it comes to economic empowerment, and my degrees in business administration with a major in marketing from Wayne State University, I taught entrepreneurship for 7 years. When it comes to economic empowerment, we have a deep, rich history of the co-ops, the cooperative economics, whether it's the Colored Merchants Association, created about 1928, which consisted of about 400 African-American owned grocery stores across the country, whether it's the Colored Farmers Union, created about 1886 in Texas, grew to 1.2 million members. If you read Dr. Jessica Gordon Nimhard's book, Collective Courage by Dr. Jessica Gordon Nimhard, it deals with a history of African-American cooperative economics. And these were principles we brought with us from Africa, the co-ops where you have the members who are also owners of the cooperative, and how the people work together, pull their resources together with the various types of businesses. You had mutual aid societies like the Free African Society of 1787, Richard Allen and Absalom Jones. And this was a mutual aid society that helped poor people. It helped raise money for health care. It helped raise money to bury people. We had cooperatives during slavery that we used to raise money to buy people out of slavery. Okay, so we have a deep, rich history of cooperative economics. So we have to understand that history and utilize a lot of that today. There's a resurgence of cooperatives like Black Food Security Network here in Detroit, and they have a grocery store that they're building. As well. It's going to be a cooperative grocery store. There's a resurgence of that, but what happened throughout history is that we bought into white capitalism, and then we thought that cooperatives were something that white hippies did or something that white millennials did, but we created the concept of cooperatives. We don't understand this. One of the most popular type of cooperatives is a credit union, which is different than a bank, because the people that have accounts with the credit unions are members, they're part owners of the credit union as well. So we have to tap into that history. That's where our strength is with the cooperatives when it comes to economics.
Folks, I want to take a couple of more, just get a couple of more of your thoughts as people have checked in. So much that needs to be that can be taken from this moment right now, folks. And that's why we're having such a big conversation about it, because it speaks to where we are in this country. And let's share this. I don't know, King Keenan, Lise, if we can post a tweet from Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida. I just said it. I was like, yo, the governor of Florida, mad quiet, son. Well, he posted a tweet. We got that? All right. Check this out. The governor of Florida said, the raid of Mar-a-Lago is another escalation in the weaponization of federal agencies against the regime's political opponents. While people like Hunter Biden get treated with kid gloves, now the regime is getting another 87,000 IRS agents to wield against its adversaries. Banana Republic. I'm telling you. Hold on. Hey, bro, Mike.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm just.
Well, he's falling in line. He's falling in line. Right. Then this is the same guy that's created a police force to monitor elections. This is the same guy who sent sheriffs to the home of a doctor who was dealing with COVID-19 protocols and precautions, if I remember correctly, that he disagreed with. So he sent the sheriff to her home. You know, so this is more of these Republican talking points that were supposed to be the party. They were supposed to be the party of law and order. Okay, the 87,000 IRS agents there to crack down on people who haven't been taking their taxes, paying their taxes, especially the wealthy. Go after some of these people who were stealing money from the PPP money, things like this. And the IRS has been understaffed. Okay, it'll help process refunds faster, things like this. So when you hear the party of law and order not want more IRS agents, when you hear them talking, he calls this a raid. That one, number one, it wasn't a raid.
It wasn't a raid.
Number two, they're getting back classified documents that Donald Trump did not give up.
Michael, this is the part, folks. Mm-hmm. This is the part that I just don't get, and this is why it's destructive. Listen to the language of the governor.
Right.
Regime. Right. Weaponization. Right. Let's put this back up here. I want us to do this, man, because this is going to get ugly, folks. Listen to the language. The weaponization of federal agencies against the regime's political opponents.
It's designed to be inflammatory and incite a lot of the coup plotters, incite a lot of these domestic terrorists.
And you know what's just going to incite, Brother Michael?
Mm-hmm.
A civil war. Civil war.
It could lead to that, but I don't think it's going to turn out the way they think it's going to turn out.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's not going to turn out to right.
You got a different. See, this ain't the Trump administration. This isn't the Trump administration. Okay,
this is not the Trump administration. I'm just saying the GOP. The GOP right now is off the rails, right? And if they don't get themselves together, this shit is going to go bad very quickly.
Right. Well,
that's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
you use this language, bro. You know, as you know it, and I know we study communications. We understand the power of words. You start to use certain language like regimes, weaponization, and you're going to look. I know. I was watching this documentary, and they were talking about domestic terrorists. How many different groups of domestic terrorists are currently in this country? Thousands upon thousands, right? Since President Trump went into office, we saw that that number had exploded. Domestic terrorism, I'm talking about those white men, those militias and those groups, right? Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, and all of these guys, people often kind of put them in the context of, oh, these guys hate race. No. These guys hate government. These guys...
They hate government until they need government, until there's a tornado.
That's what I'm saying.
They hate government. A lot of them hate race also, but they hate government until they need the government.
That's what I'm saying, that this is an like the whole militia. And I was listening to a podcast about this, and I can't remember the podcast off the top of my head, but they were talking about the history of some of these militias, and they're anti-government.
Well,
that's the part I don't understand. Like, why are you speaking to a sentiment that is not in support of where you are?
Well, one of the reasons why is because when they say they're anti-government, one of them has to do with the government, historically, the federal government helping African Americans. Number one. Number two, it has to do with the fight between the federal government and states' rights, which goes back to the U.S. Civil War and the Reconstruction era. All this is a continuation of the Civil War Reconstruction. This is what this really is. When you hear them talking about, especially the southern states, these former Confederate states, talking more about states' rights, they were infuriated by the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which changed the lives of a lot of these Southern segregationists. They were infuriated by the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Okay, because if you go back and you look at 1870 and the 15th Amendment, these Southern states started putting policies in place to get around the 15th Amendment to suppress the African American vote. And this is right around 1870 that they start having felony disenfranchisement, meaning that they start passing laws where you lose your voting rights if you have a felony conviction. That's going to start right around 1870 when with the 15th Amendment that guarantees the right to vote for African American men. All right. And then when we go and we look at what happens, Florida was the first state where Ron DeSantis is. Florida was the first state to have poll taxes in 1889, which means you had to pay a tax to register to vote. And this was designed to suppress the African-American vote. Then in 1890, you have what's known as the Mississippi State Convention of 1890, where they rewrote the state constitution to impose poll taxes and literacy tests to suppress the African-American vote in the state where African-Americans were the majority of the population. The white man that presided over the state convention, his name was Solomon Saladin Calhoun. He was a white county judge, and he said, we came here to exclude the Negro. And this is what they did. What they did in Mississippi became known as the Mississippi Plan, and it became adopted by other southern states, South Carolina, Louisiana, 1898, Alabama, 1901, Georgia, North Carolina. They go through and rewrite their state constitutions. Louisiana institutes the grandfather clause in 1898, which states that if your grandfather could not vote prior to 1867, that means you can't vote. Okay, so this was a way to get around the 15th Amendment and not hurt poor white men, and many of them who were illiterate, who couldn't pass a literacy test. Okay, so they're coming up with ways to get around the 15th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution to suppress our vote. And then the African Americans who were elected to Congress, a couple in the Senate, but also elected office. Because during Reconstruction, there's about 2,000 African-American men that get elected to public office during Reconstruction. The majority of the state legislature in South Carolina were African-American men. Okay. Most of them all get wiped out, get knocked out of office because our vote is suppressed. Well, the voter suppression bill, starting with Senate Bill 202 in Georgia. Okay. What Georgia did with Senate Bill 202 is being copied by these other states, but this is being funded and crafted by one of the groups is Heritage Action for America, which is the sister organization to the Heritage Foundation. Heritage Action for America and Jessica Anderson, who's their executive director, got caught on tape. She was speaking to a group of donors in Arizona. MotherJones.com exposed this and released the recording. And she said it was her organization that crafted Senate Bill 202, and they're crafting these boilerplate legislations that are making their ways through state legislatures to suppress the vote. Latinos, African Americans, Asian Americans, things like this. So we see history repeating itself, but we have the hindsight of history, and we have to. This is why voting is so important, to vote these people out of office. Okay, to protect ourselves.
Yeah. Hey, look, we're going to take another quick pause. When we come forward, folks, let's talk about, let's continue to kind of, get your thoughts, but we're going to just share some final thoughts around this situation because there have been, like I mentioned, there are so many different elements to this conversation. But one of the big things, folks, is that we are in a very, very unprecedented time.
Yes.
History is being made as we speak today, and we have to determine and figure out what our history is going to be moving forward. So we're going to continue the conversation, get some final thoughts from you, get some final thoughts from Brother Michael, and so much more. So stay with us. You tune into The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. We'll have that conversation when we come forward.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I've been having a very, very great, just an awesome conversation with our guest panelists here today, Brother Michael Imhotep, who's been, you've seen him on Roland Martin Unfiltered, and I'm so happy that my brother was able to spend some time with us this afternoon to give us a historical context, to give us his analysis about what we're looking at and what we're expecting to see. As you know, the latest news coming out of the Department of Justice and the Attorney General Merrick Garland that was made earlier today, stating that, they're taking unprecedented steps to retrieve some classified documents, highly classified documents that are in the possession of former President Donald Trump in his residence in Florida. And so we're having this discussion to start to poke holes in this idea that this was first a raid, this wasn't a raid, having the discussions at the implication of this move by the Department of Justice and the FBI. And now I wanted to, as we have a few moments left, and the discussion has been so lively, Brother Michael, and let's bring him back in. The discussion has been so lively, brother, that we just kind of threw away everything else on the page for our show. But it's all good, because you know why? Because I know, and like when you have major moments like this, and so many people have been checking in on the chat, on the YouTube, Facebook side. When you have major moments like this, it causes us to pause, to have a reflection moment, a moment of clarity, to look at these things and to say, okay, not just what's happening, but I've been talking about this idea of long-termism, which is that consideration of future people that are coming up behind us. Well, I'm thinking about my son. I'm thinking about my daughter. I'm thinking about,
me too.
Know what I'm saying? Like we're in a position where we could really turn the tide on how this country operates, right? And I feel like this is a very, very important place in history. And as much as you have laid out so eloquently, where this country has gone historically, the gains that the country have made, the setbacks that we have experienced. One thing is for sure, that history and gains and progress cannot be made unless people make the decision to say enough is enough. We're going to make history. This is what I've thought about. When the Forward Party announced, and this is the third party option that was announced by Andrew Yang, and Whitmer, both Republicans and Democrats. I read a piece by Jamel Bowie. And Jamel made it of the New York Times, and he just slammed this idea, like, boom, it's not going to work. The system isn't designed for this. Boom, and it hasn't worked. He looked at history, and I said to myself, but isn't history full of accounts of people who weren't confined by what was done yesterday? Isn't history a testimony of the impossible?
Well, a lot of it. So what you look at is you see laws and policies create circumstances and conditions. Then movements are created to address those circumstances and conditions, to get laws and policies put in place to address the circumstances and conditions. So when we look at the Republican Party was founded in 1854 as a backlash to what's known as the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, which allowed westward expansion of slavery. So a lot of abolitionists like Frederick Douglass were incensed by this. So the Republican Party was created to be the counter to the Democratic Party at the time. Then 6 years later, November 1860, their candidate for president becomes president-elect, Abraham Lincoln. Well, South Carolina fears that Lincoln is going to free the slaves. So South Carolina is the first state to secede from the Union, December 20th, 1860, 6 weeks after Lincoln becomes president. Then it's going to be followed by other states. And then you have the attack on Fort Sumter, April 12, 1861 in South Carolina to get which was a federal stronghold, to get the federal troops out of South Carolina. This is what triggers the U.S. Civil War. Okay. So you have policies creating conditions. You have a movement coming about to address the conditions, and you have the abolitionists fighting to end slavery, things like this. So, yes, that's true. Now, what we have to understand is when you talked about voting, one of the things that we miss when we talk about voting is voting is a continuous process. It's not a one-time event. Number one, you don't just vote to get people put into office and get policies put in place. You also have to vote to protect the gains that were made. And this is something that people miss. If we understood what was at stake in 2016, we would have stopped Donald Trump. Donald Trump only won Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania by 78,000 popular votes. Okay. We would have stopped Trump because Trump reversed a lot of the policies from the Obama Biden administration that were beneficial to African Americans. He attacked and weakened the Affordable Health Care Act. He stopped the investigations into the patterns and practices of police departments. Okay, he reversed Obama's 2016 initiative not to renew federal contracts with privatized prisons because Trump was financially backed by Core Civic and Geo Group, which are two of the largest privatized prisons in the country. They donated almost $600,000 to his 2016 campaign. When he became president, he reversed that initiative, and they got more lucrative contracts, especially contracts to house migrants coming to this country. So if we understood history and understood Richard Nixon in 1968, who ran on the platform of law and order, this was part of the platform that Donald Trump ran on in 2016. So you don't just vote to get policies put in place that have been beneficial for you. We also have to understand the concept of protecting gains. And it's not always what somebody can do for you. It's also understanding how to block and stop what people are trying to do to you as well. This deals with understanding political self-defense. Okay. Yeah. And secondly, very quickly, African Americans, we should be focused on taking over the Democratic Party, not trying to start a third party. That's where most of us are. We should be focused, but see, it takes a different mindset to think about taking over the Democratic Party and fashioning it into what we want it to be. Okay, but
and to that point, Brother Michael, I mean, you're saying it takes a different mindset,
right?
It does take a different mindset, you know. And look, I like the idea if Black folks said, you know what, we're going to create a different party. Right. And if we're going to call, you know, I had this conversation with some of my culture crew members a couple of weeks ago. They said, well, come up with the Black Party or the Black Justice Party. Like that, because you know why? Here's this. As much as you share with like the history, right, this is a pivotal and fertile ground. I'm speaking of the time that we're currently living in. This is fertile ground for radical change to take place. Fertile ground, because dissatisfaction is high, because people are yearning for something different, because there are so many interests, right, where the American political system can't speak to all of these interests and to the diversity and to the growth of the country. This is fertile ground. This is the stuff, folks. Again, going back to my idea that some people see tragedy, other people see opportunity. This is fertile ground right now for us to say, where can we do it? Now, you might laugh at Andrew, and I'm not saying you, Brother Michael. I'm just saying people might say, oh, Andrew, you ain't crazy. I see it as an opportunity, a sign that, look, if they can come together and put together a little political action committee talking about running some candidates in November and possibly having a presidential candidate by 24, what's stopping us from being in that space?
Yeah,
What's stopping us from saying that we can't do something?
See, when you start talking about running for president and understanding the gerrymandering of the districts, and it takes 270 electoral college votes to become president-elect, and understand Biden got 81 million votes, okay? There was only 16.9 million of those votes came from African Americans, because there's only 30 million African Americans registered to vote. When you start talking about running statewide and running for president, it's something entirely different. You may have a third party at the local level. You may have slates and things like this at the local level. When you start talking about president, you have to understand how the electoral college actually works, okay? Then there's not enough African Americans registered to vote to get a president elected in a third party by themselves. 61% of Biden's votes came from white people. It was 49 million white people that voted for Biden. I know a lot of people think the majority of his votes came from African Americans. No, it wasn't. He got 81 million votes. Only 30 million African Americans registered to vote, okay? 16.9 million voted for Biden. When you start talking about on a national level, it's entirely different. We can become a third force because, see, like you have the Progressive Caucus in the Democratic Party. We could become a very powerful third force in the Democratic Party, just like the Tea Party became a very powerful force within the Republican Party. The Tea Party was not a separate party. When they went to go vote, okay, there was the Republican candidate who was a member of the Tea Party. That was a faction within the Republican Party.
Look, let me just tell you, we could start there. I'm not saying we jump out there, but you know what I'm saying? Like, but we can start there. And here's my point on that, Brother Michael. My point is realizing that you have power, that we don't just have to be consumers of politics, but we can be producers of new political thought. We don't just have to, we have power, right? And here's why I'm pushing back on a lot of, and this is just my understanding, folks. This is Black Star Network. You know how I keep it 100, y'all, and we can have a diversity of views. But I'm pushing back now on Black folks, Black leaders, Black politicals, just saying, all right, just go out and vote. Man, no.
Yeah, no, you can't.
I'm pushing back on that. No. That's not, because that's conditioning, especially for the next generation. It's conditioning young people to think that all they got to do is just pull a lever, cast a ballot, and then they wait for change. I'm not waiting on no mystery God to save me in the falling of America, brother.
Right. Yeah. You have to
I'm not waiting. No, I can't wait on that. I can't wait. Either we gonna get out there and get this shit popping, or we not. It's just
right. You have to understand policy. You have to understand what the candidates advocate for. We have to have our own agenda as well, based upon an understanding of politics and history. But also, there's engagement that takes place after the election is over with, and that's the part that a lot of us miss. The election is the end of one process and the beginning of another process. But very quickly, before we run out of time, Brother Farajii, I just wanted to talk very quickly, a couple minutes about my 2 online history classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. I've been studying history for 30 years. I'm a historian. Visit my website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. On Saturdays, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, usually, I teach ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Oh, there we go. And then you can scroll down and it'll show you the class. On Saturdays, I teach ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. This is a 10-week online class. This time around, we're going to do 12 weeks. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay, I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips. There's a binder that I teach from. It's going to transform the way you think about history. Okay, you can scroll back up because it has the information right above that.
Come on, man. Come on.
And then it has the link there. The class is on sale $60, regularly $130. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. So a year from now, 2 years from now, you can have full access. You can watch the entire class. The content, I would say, is PG-13. You can use it with your children as well. On Sundays, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, normally I teach from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. It deals with a lot of history that we talked about today. And if you scroll down a little bit more, we have the second class. We start in 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase and the Haitian Revolution because those two events are related. We go throughout history chronologically, see what leads to the Civil War taking place. We deal with Reconstruction, 1865, 1877, Jim Crow era, Great Migration, 1915, 1970, World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power movement. To understand what happened to us after slavery ended, what were the laws and policies put in place to get us to where we are today, to understand where we need to go from here. So both classes are on sale, and we have a bundle pack. You get both classes for $100. Visit our new website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. And this helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. So I look forward to seeing you all in class this weekend.
Hey, Brother Michael.
Yes.
You are my brother, man. You are my guy, brother.
Oh, thanks,
No,
Farajii.
seriously. Thank you so much, brother. You know, this conversation and the way that we had this conversation could not have happened without your scholarship, your brilliance as part of this. Really, really sharing and providing some context. And this is why we need the Black Star Network. This is why we have these conversations, man, because, you know, when you're talking about shaping Black thought, with Black people, you got to hit us with the history. Yes. You got to hit us with the analysis. You got to hit us with the, you know, with the present, with the present events, like all of it has to, you know what I mean? So because we need a context, man. We need to have a full understanding. And I think today, so many people have been streaming, have checked onto the live stream, and they have been loving the discussions, brother. And so, you know, I really want to thank you on behalf of my team here at The Culture. We thank you so much.
For having me. And I'll be on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday also. I'll be on Roland Martin.
There we go, man. You know what I mean? This is the brilliance of Black Star. So, you know, Brother Michael, I thank you so much for your brilliance and your leadership and your scholarship. But most importantly, brother, thank you for just doing the great work that you're doing, which is teaching history and putting it in a way that we can all understand it. Thank you, thank you, brother. I got to bring you back on, my man.
Absolutely. Let me know.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Brother Michael Imhotep, check him out at the AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Yes. The great show that he's doing on Sunday nights. There's his website right there, folks.
Thank you.
Sign up for his classes and much more. Stay connected. And also, where are you on your social media, Brother Michael?
Oh, the African History Network on Facebook. We have 1 million followers there. Michael Imhotep on YouTube and Michael Imhotep on Instagram and on Twitter.
There it is.
The AHN show on Twitter. But if you go to our website, it connects you to our social media platforms.
There it is.
My DVD lectures and downloads are at our website also.
Boy, we got heavy hitters on Black Star. Heavy hitters.
Yep. Thanks.
All right, thank you, big brother. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, brother. All right, peace.
Absolutely, peace. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I told you. You know, all the different elements of the show had to be like thrown to the side just simply because this is a big conversation. And trust and believe, Brother Roland is probably, I know he's going to go deeper. He's going to go deeper. So make sure y'all stay tuned for Roland Martin Unfiltered, 6 o'clock tonight. And of course, it's Thursday night. So, you know, Reese and Dr. Carr, they're going to have a lot to say. Big shout out to the Thursday team on RMU. But make sure you show your continued support for what we're doing here at Black Star Network. You can go to our website today and download the app for free. But most importantly, this is the move that we're in right now. The vibe that we're on is financial support, so we can continue to bring unfiltered, unadulterated conversation about issues and the stories that are pertinent to us. BlackStarNetwork.com. We need your full support, folks. We need your financial support. We need you to share the content. We need you to sign up for our email list. All of it. Become a full-blown supporter of Black Star Network. Check us out at BlackStarNetwork.com. Those are all the ways that you can financially support us. And we thank you we thank you on behalf of the culture and the Black Star Network team. We thank you so much for your continued support of the great work that we're striving to do with Black media. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. But I want to thank my dynamic team. I want to thank King Keenan. I want to thank Lisa. I want to thank my producer, Joel and Shannon and Ariel. And I thank all of you for your continued your analysis, your thoughts, and your praise for the show. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, only on the Black Star Network. Peace.